Hey guys, Brad the Browncoat Brony here, and after a short delay of 6.5 years, that can't be right. Huh. Anyway, we've finally come to the conclusion of this story. I'll save the explanation for why I've been gone for so long until after the story, but for right now, I'm sure you guys just want to, hop right into this, so let's go!
Chapter 3
Demons of the Night.
Tonight is the night to act, Luna. We might have time to do this, but I don't know how much more. For all I know, it could happen tomorrow. I understand. Better to do it early than on time. But I admit that I am concerned over what I'm about to do. Why is that? This isn't the first time you've talked to ponies in their dreams. Yes, but she is not like most ponies, just as her predicament is not like most I've seen. I admit that her dreams with that beast trouble me to no end, even more than your previous nightmares with Nightmare Moon. And I thank you for helping me through that time. But does this mean you cannot do it? No, I certainly can, but you must realize how difficult this will be, even for me. I can't guarantee that I'll be successful. I want you to succeed, Luna, because I don't want Twilight to stay like this. But I want to know even more that you're trying. Very well, Celestia. I will do as you ask on this very night.
The air by the balcony was cool and crisp that night. A gentle breeze blew the curtains to the side, and the moonlight was partially blocked by their waves. As the doors to the balcony were wide open, the bedroom was bathed in the moon's fading glow. The guest bedroom was extravagant, as was expected from the castle of Celestia. The bed itself was huge and could rest a family of ponies. There was a canopy hanging over it. More curtains hung from the canopy, and it was hard at times to see who was inside. But you could certainly hear her. Twilight Sparkle was resting inside the bed, or more accurately, was trying to rest. She was in a deep sleep, but she grew restless. She tossed and turned back and forth to her sides, her pregnant belly limiting her movements a bit.
Sombra, no, don't do this to me,
she said in her sleep. Her face went from expression to expression, sometimes happy and sometimes distraught. Whatever it was she saw, it made her scared to her soul. Sweat formed all around her body, and her forelegs kicked around in the air. The wind flapped around the balcony, but not just from the wind anymore. Wings more powerful than that of any Pegasus flapped around the air as they approached the bedroom. 4 hooves touched down on the balcony's floor, covered by white sandals. The pony who arrived had the stars of the night sky in her flowing mane and tail. The crescent moon was forever embodied on her flank, and her crown signalled the sort of power her position carried. Princess Luna noticed the constant noises Twilight made as soon as she was inside. The purple alicorn spoke strange words in her sleep, and she wrestled with her own blanket. And so Luna went to the side of the bed and parted the canopy's curtains to gaze inside. Her worst fears concerning Twilight's state came true in that bed. The sheets were stained in Twilight's sweat, and rarely had Luna seen a pony as terrified as she was.
I will not delay any further,
Luna announced.
You need my help, and I will not deny it for you.
Her horn glowed from bottom to tip as she concentrated on getting inside Twilight's dreams. Her eyes began to lose their pupils, changing entirely to white. Her vision did the same as the bedroom disappeared in front of her. She felt herself being sucked into Twilight's brain, even though her body was still standing next to the bed without any change. It wasn't long until the bedroom disappeared entirely, and she was taken into the dreamscape. When she opened her eyes, she had arrived at a forest not unlike the one where Scootaloo ran away from the headless horse. It was thick with trees and vegetation, and she could hear a stream nearby. She found herself confused by this location. All of Twilight's nightmares with Sombra had taken her to places like castles and tundras, and yet this forest was the place her thoughts dwelled on. Why was that so? Either way, the pony having the dream would never be far away, so Luna decided she would go looking for Twilight. That is, until she spotted a pony standing next to the stream. It didn't take long to recognise the purple-coated figure as Twilight, so Luna set off to meet her in the forest. But the Princess of Ponyville was already looking in Luna's direction by the time she arrived, knowing she was here before Luna even knew where she was. Twilight was wearing her royal attire as she sat on the ground, quivering in fear as Luna came to see her.
It's you!
Twilight whispered.
I knew it was you in my dreams. And now you're here. Yes, I have arrived,
Luna announced.
Do you know why I'm here? It's because I've been having nightmares, isn't it? You saw them. You knew I was in trouble.
Twilight lowered her head, not looking forward to the next part.
And you've come to help, because that's one of your duties. Precisely,
Luna responded, almost proud of herself.
I informed Celestia that you were having nightmares, all involving Sombra.
She placed a hoof on Twilight's chin, causing her to raise her head.
But do not be ashamed of these things, Twilight. You are correct that I have come to help, but you must be willing to open yourself up to me for this to succeed. Understand?
Twilight nodded.
I understand. Then tell us this. Why here?
Twilight sighed and lowered her head again. She sniffled as she mentally prepared herself for what was about to come. Rather than answer Luna immediately, she chose to get off her flank and walk over to the stream. She stopped at the banks and let the cool water rush over her hooves. Her reflection in the river showed a weary pony back to her, one whose eyes glistened with tears. Soon enough she caught Luna's reflection standing next to it, concerned and agitated. Luna wanted to step in and ask why Twilight had not answered her question, but she knew how sensitive she would be over this moment, so she chose to let the dream play out. Then she heard the clopping of hooves ahead of them. When she looked up, she witnessed a green stallion coming to the stream, a unicorn of sorts. It was a pony that she had never seen before, further confusing the princess. But Twilight's eyes lit up when she saw him, and she ran across the stream to the other side. She came to see the stallion, and he seemed just as happy as she was to see him. Yet, as soon as she remembered who he was, her ears parted to the sides.
This is a memory from long ago,
Twilight explained.
And it keeps haunting me for one reason. Why is that?
Luna pondered.
I do not know who this pony is. You'll see.
After Twilight spoke, the stallion's horn glowed with magic, and the spell took over his whole body in a sphere of light. His features changed to that of another pony's, his coat turning to grey, his mane was pitch black, and his horn became red. When the process was over, and his hooves touched the ground, he had transformed into King Sombra. Luna snorted in anger and prepared herself for battle, before she remembered that it was all just a dream.
Did you see that pony he was disguising himself as?
Twilight started.
That was how he gained my trust. He gave me a book from Star Swirl the Bearded, had dinner with Cadence, and drank coffee with me in that form. And when he revealed himself as Sombra, he used all those events against me, saying that if he came to me in his true form, I would have never given him a chance. And how his actions proved he was reformed, like how he never raised a hoof against Cadence for that entire dinner.
The Sombra of the dream was saying many things to her, yet Luna didn't hear one word being spoken. His body language seemed to imply he was reassuring her, stating his case as it was. Twilight nodded to several of those things, and it crushed her heart as she did so.
I realized how a lot of the things he said sounded right. I couldn't argue against him, and considering this was after Discord's reformation, I thought I needed to give him a chance, which was my first mistake.
She began to cry again, and Sombra only sat there, not saying a thing.
I gave him my trust this night, and if I didn't do that and reported that he came back to Celestia like I wanted to, none of this would have happened. Why did I have to be so gullible?
She gave in and cried again, feeling so stupid for this memory. It was beyond any self-control, and the ground below her face was soaked in tears. Then, all of a sudden, she felt a rush of energy around her hooves. The trees whistled against an incoming wind, and all of the wind went directly into the stream. A bright light blinded her quickly, and she shielded her eyes with her forelegs. When she uncovered them, Luna had transformed into Nightmare Moon. She stood tall in the night, and she approached the cowering purple alicorn with all of her might. Yet she did not attack Twilight, but stood in front of her and spoke.
Look at this form,
Nightmare Moon stated.
Take as long as you need. Do you really think you're the only pony in this dream who has made mistakes that cost her dearly? I struck out against my sister over 1,000 years ago, and we have both paid for my sins. I was banished to the moon for it, and Celestia had to deal with my absence for all that time.
The wind whistled around her body again, and a ball of magical energy surrounded her. Once the ball was gone, she had taken the form of Luna again.
Yet I was redeemed. I paid a heavy price for my mistakes, yes, but once the door was opened for me to make up for them, I walked through it. I made things right with Celestia. And that is what you must do. Don't let these mistakes make you feel like you are a worse pony for them. Rather learn from them as I have with mine.
Twilight sat through Luna's speech, and as she listened, she felt a fire in her heart. She felt more encouraged than she had in a long time, and she couldn't help but feel excited once Luna was done.
That's exactly what I'm going to do this time. I'm not going to be so gullible. I'm not going to let this stop me forever. I'll learn my lesson and let go, I think. I need to work on it, but I'm better for it now, right? Look for yourself.
Luna pointed at the spot where Sombra had stood. Twilight looked for herself, but Sombra had vanished in that spot. In his place was a pile of dust, leaving no trace of the tyrant.
What does that mean?
Twilight asked.
There are many ways that a pony's dreams demonstrate that they have conquered their demons,
Luna explained.
Sometimes when they are against a wall, they will have help in the form of a friend, as Scootaloo did when Rainbow Dash helped her face her fears. And sometimes, when a pony is no longer haunted by the memories of a pony that harmed them, the offender vanishes from their dreams. So, I'm over Sombra now? I don't believe so. You may not feel ashamed for being gullible, but there is more to it, isn't there?
As if to answer, the dream began to crumble around the two princesses. The trees tipped and crashed all around them. The ground cracked as if there was an earthquake, and the sky turned from dark blue to white.
What's going on?
Twilight screamed.
We will soon find out,
Luna shouted.
I do not know myself.
Eventually the dreamscape was completely gone, as white as snow. As the next dreamscape took over, when Luna regained her bearings, she found herself in a room of sorts. The walls were made out of darkened brick, and red carpet laid all over the floor. A large bed was laid in the middle of the room, the sort of bed she would rest in. So it was the bedroom she was in, she quickly deduced. It was rather dark to her tastes, but that was not important to her. What was important was the pony on the bed. Sombra laid across the sheets, clean of his body armour and any sort of clothing. Luna had seen him as such in the previous dream, but it was so weird to see him that way after all of her memories of him wearing the robes of a king. His tail waved back and forth in anticipation, and his eyes were locked in a certain direction. Twilight was what had his attention. She was devoid of clothing as he was, and her expression told the whole story to Luna. The purple alicorn's jaw dropped to the floor at the mere sight of him. And yet she drew herself closer to the side of the bed, tempted into bed with the stallion. Luna felt dirty watching Sombra's actions. She couldn't help but feel that he was seducing Twilight, and it didn't help that Twilight was going along with the ride. Of course, that's what she thought was happening, but she didn't want to see it happen so badly. She wasn't completely sure that romance was on his mind.
I'm assuming that this is a memory as well?
She questioned.
The interior of the walls are not unlike Sombra's castle, and this, well, I can see where this is going. But explain it all the same to me.
Twilight gulped as she stopped at the edge of the bed, her eyes locking on the stallion, inviting her to join him.
I'm not sure if I should talk about it.
Luna glared at her, a rare sign of anger towards the pony that had helped reform her.
If you are to get past these events, you must confront it. Hiding from your feelings only delays the confrontation, but it will never prevent it.
Twilight brought her hoof to the sheets, her body screaming for her to go all the way inside.
This was our wedding night. I thought I burned all the bridges for Celestia to save me at this point, so I gave in and married Sombra. And this part? This was when we made love for the first time. If it wasn't for this moment, I wouldn't be pregnant today.
Sombra greeted her with the most loving eyes she had ever seen. She found herself drawn to him, even though she knew that he wasn't real. She wanted to feel his touch again, just to feel the love he gave her one last time. And so she hopped into the bed and came to him. He rewarded her with a kiss on the lips, and she found herself kissing him back. He drew a hoof around her neck, and she loved the feeling so much that she giggled. Then her true feelings came back to the surface. She pushed him away. He seemed distraught from her actions, but she put her hoof up to block his advances.
I love you so much,
Twilight confessed.
Then why are you pushing me away?
Sombra inquired.
You have me again. I was your first love, wasn't I? That's part of the reason why you can't help but think of me. Because I was the only stallion you ever loved.
He approached her again and kissed her on the neck. She moaned again and did not stop his advances that time. She knew Luna was still watching her, and she felt ashamed for it.
It's true,
she confessed.
I don't know if Celestia ever told you this, but I did love Sombra at that time. He came to me like no stallion ever did before or since, and he loved me back, even if he wanted to seduce me to the dark side at the time. I felt it when he loved me this night.
Yet again she pushed him off her, and rather than stay with him, she got off the bed and went to Luna. She did not dare look at the Princess of the Night in the eye, having shown her something she never wanted to show another pony, not even Celestia.
But I knew it was wrong,
she continued.
But sometimes I'm worried about it. I haven't met any pony that loved me like he did. At least, not romantically. I still want to feel his touch when I'm in my bed. And I know that's terrible to admit, but it keeps happening. Please, please don't kick me out of the kingdom because of this.
And yet, she did not feel a slap to the face, or hear Luna storm off as she'd expected. Instead, she saw a pile of books form around her hooves. They all had Luna's blue magical glow to them, and the books were numerous in count. Some of them had pictures of previous moments of Twilight's life for a cover, but many had no cover at all. In fact, most of them didn't. Luna came to her and grew serious in nature.
What do you suppose these books represent?
Twilight shook her head.
I don't know. Then I shall tell you. The books with a cover represent the years of your life that you have lived, and the ones that have none are the years yet to be lived. Even I don't know how many years you have left. Maybe you shall live for 1,000 years as I have, but there is more to your life.
She scooted up one certain book to Twilight, and the cover had Twilight arriving with Spike in Ponyville, clearly the moment she first set hoof in the town.
I want you to open that book,
Luna commanded. Twilight nodded, and she flipped through the pages of the Ponyville book. All the pages had pictures of her first memories after moving to Ponyville. From reforming Nightmare Moon, to going to the gala with her friends, to defeating Discord, to so much more. They all had one thing in common. They all had her surrounded by her friends. The 5 ponies and 1 dragon were always there for her, comforting and helping her when she needed it. And she was happy.
Don't you see that you're surrounded by ponies that love you for who you are?
Luna brought up.
They loved you because they saw the pony that you were at your core. Did they lie to earn your love? No. Then you know that you will still receive love, even when you have failed at something. But I understand that you want to feel those romantic feelings for a stallion again, don't you? Yes, I want it so badly. Then bring those thoughts to the blank books. They are numerous, no? More books that have blank pages than the ones that have pictures. That means you have more life to look forward to than what you have already lived. I cannot say that I know who the right stallion is for you, but I know this. When the time comes, you know he is the right one for you. When he looks past the crown and sees you for who you really are, and loves you for that alone.
As soon as she said those words, the Sombra on the bed vanished into dust. He was gone completely, and yet Twilight had rarely looked happier in her life.
Thank you so much,
Twilight mentioned.
I'm not sure if I'm completely over him, but I feel like I'm a step closer. Maybe by the next book the problem will be gone, right?
Luna laughed to herself.
You take to wisdom as fillies take to the summertime air. Thanks, I guess.
Even with the cheerful atmosphere around them both, Luna began to frown as time went on. It made Twilight uncomfortable, as she thought the worst was over. But now she didn't know.
What's wrong?
She asked.
There is more to this trial yet, I'm afraid. If we are still in this place, then that means there is more to your torment than even I thought. What do you mean?
The room turned to white a second time. Twilight thought she was going to be sick, even though she thought it was impossible to throw up in a dream. Yes, she had gotten sick like that in real life, but this wasn't exactly real. As she adjusted to the jump in dreams, the area around her began to take form. She soon discovered that her wings were missing, and she wasn't wearing any clothing again. That was fine, since she wasn't wearing her crown or any sort of attire in the first place. What wasn't fine were the crystal claws that curved around her, trapping her in a bizarre prison. Then she realized that she was holding something in her front hooves. She looked down and saw the crystal heart in her grasp. She almost screamed when she recognized what was going on. The rest of the environment took shape, and she was on the balcony of a crystal tower. There were more crystal towers outside her prison, and the sky was swirling around in snow. A wave of shadows was coming right at her, a pair of green eyes in the middle of them. This was when she first met Sombra and defeated him, barely. But the fact that she came only inches away from losing everything that day didn't exactly make it a pleasant memory. Luna was there as well, outside of the clawed prison in that tower. She peered her head out to see the shadowy force coming right for them, and she snorted when she saw Sombra.
This was the moment that you saved the Crystal Empire from Sombra's hooves, wasn't it?
Luna asked.
I would have fought him myself if Celestia had not stopped me. I loathed that stallion like few others.
And yet, Twilight was too busy freaking out to listen. She tried to get through the cracks to no avail, and she gripped the crystal heart as tightly as she could. There was no way she would let Sombra take it.
What am I supposed to do?
She screamed.
I'm trapped in here again!
That brought Luna's attention back to what mattered, and she ran over to the prison to assist Twilight. She beamed her horn and hit one of the claws with a destructive fire spell, one that would set entire fields ablaze. Yet the spell deflected off the claw, as if she was a weak little filly. Twilight freaked out even more, and the shadows were gaining on them.
"What do I do now?"
She begged.
"How did you beat Sombra the first time?"
Luna asked.
I...
She saw Spike standing out there, looking as terrified as she was, and yet he was waiting for her to say what he needed to do for her. He was right outside the clawed prison, and he was free. That's when she remembered what she did when she was trapped before. How it saved all of Equestria and the lives of the crystal ponies. And what she needed to do right now.
"I had to trust and depend on my friends and family when I could not do it on my own,"
she stated.
"They helped us win on that day. That's how it happened. And that's what I need to do now after Sombra came back and did all those things to me. I need to trust that my friends can pick me up when I fall down."
She grabbed the heart with her levitation spell and threw it to Spike. The dragon picked up the gem with his claws, and it glowed as bright as the sun. The beams of light shot directly into the shadows of Sombra. He screamed in pain as the light caused his very form to vanish for good, until his physical form was dying as well. But the light did not stop there. It took over the entire empire, until it was like looking right into a flashlight. Twilight's eyes shot open, and she jolted her head forward. She stopped in her tracks immediately, as her pregnant belly prevented her from sitting up, but she lifted her head as much as she could. Her face was drenched in sweat, and she couldn't stop herself from breathing heavily. She was back in the guest room, and she placed her hooves over her face. Her forehead was blazing hot, and she felt sick to her stomach again, but it wasn't from her foal this time. That was the most vivid dream of her life, and she felt the sort of exhaustion that came with travelling long distances, as if she really had visited all those places in her memories. Then she sensed that some pony was there with her. She saw Luna standing next to the bed, her eyes slowly going from white to their usual self. Luna shook her head as she regained her bearings, and she noticed Twilight was awake. She smiled as she came a little closer, sitting her flank on the side of the bed.
"I didn't even have to say anything at the end."
Luna beamed.
"You discovered exactly what you were supposed to do in that situation without my help. That speaks much about your character. But what was it you did that saved us all from Sombra the first time?"
Twilight paused to think, and a smile formed on her lips as she remembered everything.
"What I'm supposed to do now. I'm supposed to let others help me in my time of need. That I should trust other ponies, and dragons, when I know I can't do it alone. Just as you did in the Crystal Empire when you defeated Sombra the first time, I'm assuming. I saw you give Spike the crystal heart." "That's right, and I can see it clearly now. You and Celestia saved me from him the second time, and both times I would have died or stayed corrupted if it wasn't for someone else. And that's how I'm going to get past Sombra again, isn't it?"
Luna nodded.
"I think your heart knew the answer even before you asked." "Yeah, I did. And I want help through this part as well. Raising the foal and everything. And it's not bad to ask for help."
That made the Princess of the Night smile as well.
"It sounds to me like you've learned the lesson you needed to hear."
Twilight grinned from cheek to cheek, and she pulled off the sheets to her blanket. She came over and hugged Luna, and Luna returned the favour. It felt to both of them as if they were hugging as sisters, which wasn't far off from reality anymore. The curtains in the room kept blowing from the wind, but it drifted more peacefully, going along with the currents of nature.
Chapter 4.
Her pride and joy. 1.5 weeks passed since Luna had conquered Twilight's memories of Sombra in her dreams, and if it was even possible, Twilight's belly had grown a little bit more with the foal. In the meantime, the doctors set to look after her for the delivery arrived at the castle. It was usually boring and tedious resting on their hooves for just one patient, But this was one of those rare exceptions where it didn't matter, since their one task was so important. In the meantime, there was still a life to live. And that was what Rarity did. She trotted through the hallways of Celestia's castle with a folder in her magical grip. The folder was full of papers, each looking like the sort of document Celestia used to carry out business. The fashionista headed for the specific location, but even then she couldn't resist, every now and then, to marvel at all the fantastic architecture and tapestry that hung around the castle.
No, this is far more important,
she kept reminding herself.
She's depending on me.
So she kept running along, making sure she made it to her destination in time. After all, she was given a very special duty, and she was going to make sure she didn't disappoint. After walking through the twists and turns leading to the place her friends would be, she arrived at the entrance of a lounge room, the same one Twilight and Celestia had held their heart-to-heart talk in. Of course, Rarity didn't know about that occasion at all. For all she knew, Twilight loved that room for its large collection of books for such a small room. Rarity knocked on the door, hoping she wasn't interrupting anything.
Yes? Who is it?
Twilight's voice asked. She sounded normal, at least.
It's me, darling,
Rarity responded.
Can I come in? Of course, the door's unlocked.
With that green light, Rarity grabbed the handle with her magic and opened the door. She stepped inside and caught Twilight sitting on one of the pillows, sipping a cup of tea and having a history book laid out in front of her. Twilight turned to see the white unicorn, and she recognized the folder of papers for what it was. A bunch of documents updating her on information she needed to know, or tasks she needed to do. Typical princess stuff. Not that it was a bad thing. In fact, she was growing to like it. Rarity took a seat on the pillow next to Twilight, and she eyed the cup of tea longingly.
I should get a cup of tea myself once we're finished.
Rarity thought out loud.
Especially with this stressful week. You know, you could always let Spike be my assistant again if you want.
Twilight brought up.
Nonsense! After all the things my Spiky Wikey has done for you already, he deserves his rest. And besides, he's working with me to assist you as well. I do wonder why he enjoys working with me so much.
Twilight giggled, knowing what Spike was up to.
I think I might have a few ideas. Anyways, good morning, Princess Twilight. How are you feeling today? Not good. I mean, I was better after breakfast. But you know how the doctor said the foal could be due any day? It actually feels that way now. Oh, I believe you! That belly does look swollen. Anyways, here are a few things to bring to your attention.
Rarity brought out her folder in the air and arranged the papers neatly into single file, arranged like soldiers in a unit.
Looks like this one is a note about the other elements of harmony. They all just arrived at the castle, so they can be present when the foal arrives. That should be nice, right? Yes, and with my family in town, everyone is here, right? Even Shining Armor and Cadence, I think. Indeed, they're staying in one of the guest bedrooms as we speak. Oh, and I should mention something else. Pinkie Pie has already organized the, congrats you just had your first foal party in the ballroom. Sounds to me like another glorified foal shower after the 3 foal showers she already had for you.
Twilight giggled, expecting nothing less from Pinkie Pie.
As long as she wants to do it and she respects that we need some time alone after the delivery, it's fine with me.
And then she heard her stomach growl. All of a sudden, it felt like she'd never had her breakfast earlier in the day. Instead, she felt like she hadn't eaten for over a week. Rarity could hear her stomach growl as well, and she took a mental note of it.
Maybe you should have an early lunch today,
she suggested.
I'm sure we can find something nice to eat. That sounds great. Do you think you could help me out? Of course. Just take it nice and slow.
Rarity came to Twilight's side and picked up her right front hoof. The purple alicorn used the hoof to balance herself as she came up on all 4 legs. It was difficult to do with the foal on board, but she took her friend's advice and did it nice and slow. Eventually, she was standing upright on her hooves again, and the two of them began to walk down the doors leading out of the lounge room. Rarity stood by her friend's side the entire time, making sure she was ready in case Twilight stumbled or fell. Twilight smacked her lips together, just thinking of lunch. She thought of all the things the castle's cooks could make for her, and she couldn't fathom thinking of just one thing to eat. Maybe, just maybe, she could eat 2 meals for lunch. Then she stopped in her tracks when she felt something unusual go down her hind leg. It felt like some kind of liquid, and it was followed by a dripping noise on the floor. It struck her as weird, but not as weird as the face Rarity was making. She watched her friend in horror, and her eyes' pupils shrunk to the size of dimes.
"Oh, my Celestia, your water broke!"
she proclaimed.
"Somebody, get her to the delivery room!"
Twilight realized that for herself, and she panicked when the moment hit her.
"Oh my gosh, I'm going to give birth soon! But doesn't it hurt a lot?"
Before she could even think, a wheelchair came up from behind and hit her right in the flanks. She yelled as she fell back into the wheelchair. Some pony from behind pushed it forward as fast as they could.
"Wait, what the hey is going on?"
she screamed.
"I'm taking you to the delivery room myself, that's what!"
Rarity screamed back. As it turned out, Rarity had shoved Twilight into the wheelchair and used her magic to push it as fast as she could. She raced through the hallways at Rainbow Dash speeds, and she didn't give a buck about what she was doing. This was far more important.
"Can you at least slow down?"
Twilight responded.
"We're not that far away from the delivery room, I think." "Doesn't matter, we're getting you there as soon as we can."
The next thing Twilight knew, she was hit with the most painful sensation she ever felt in her life. She bit down on her hoof as she screamed internally.
"Okay, maybe we should get there as fast as we can."
A team of doctors surrounded Twilight on the hospital bed as she was lowered carefully onto her back. She screamed again as the pain grew to be more intense. It felt like she was going to die on the spot, and she nearly fainted from the experience.
"Do we have all the tools we need for the delivery?"
one mare said.
I believe so. Her vital signs are normal. Everything about this is normal.
A stallion responded.
"Don't tell me this is normal!"
Twilight yelled.
"This hurts so much!"
She screamed again as another wave of pain reached her stomach. The alicorn gripped the bedsheets as much as her hooves would allow, and for the first time in her life she wished she was a human, or at least that she could hold on to something with fingers, instead of having her hooves slip off everything she tried to grab. The staff of doctors all came around her, and they turned on a bunch of monitors and things she had never seen before. A few of them were spending all of their attention on Twilight, but a few looked to the door as it was swung open. Princess Celestia arrived at the scene in her royal attire, her eyes opened wide as she realized her former student was deep into labor. She rushed to Twilight's left side and grabbed her front hoof in support.
"Don't worry, I'm here for you now,"
she said, her voice trembling and soothing at the same time.
"Thank you, but oh, Celestia, this hurts!"
Twilight shouted. She gripped Celestia's hoof as tightly as she could, and sweat poured down her face like a waterfall.
"Just breathe for now. It will help. Trust me."
Heeding her advice, Twilight sucked in a breath of air, as much as her lungs would allow. She clung to Celestia so hard that it was hurting her former teacher, but Tia was far too focused on her to notice. Twilight let out a blood-curdling cry, and she panted heavily as the pain got worse against all odds. She kept panting for air, and she saw a doctor come right in front of her.
"You're doing good. Trust me. But you have to do something for me now,"
the doctor explained to her as calmly as she could.
"What? Just tell me." "You have to start pushing now. Push!" "No! I can't!"
She gasped for more air until her lungs felt like they were going to explode in her chest.
"You can do it.
encouraged Celestia.
I believe in you. Now push!
Twilight focused all of her energy on pushing, but the agony exploded again. It felt like she was going to be ripped apart from bottom to top, and she shook her head to throw in the towel. But Celestia gripped her hoof just as tightly as she did, and Twilight looked to her teacher again for encouragement. The fact that she was so worried for her well-being was enough to keep her going, and she pushed again.
Oh, Celestia, this hurts! I don't know if I can do it!
She screamed.
Just keep doing it,
The Mare Doctor repeated.
You're making great progress. You call this progress? This is going to kill me! But I can see the foal now,
said the doctor.
I can see him coming out. What? Is he beautiful? Yes, but I need you to push again.
Twilight pushed another time, and she was sure that the labour had killed her at last. And yet she could still breathe. She was sure her body exploded on the bed, but she was still in one piece. Her mane was wet and down on her head from all the sweat, and she felt like the life escaped from her hooves.
It's out a little bit more now,
the doctor updated.
Just a few more pushes.
She gritted her teeth as she pushed again, something she thought was impossible, but she shook her head again as the pain brought her to her limits.
I can't do it anymore. Yes, you can,
Celestia chimed in.
I'm so proud of you for making it this far, but you have to finish!
That last word was the first time Twilight had ever heard Celestia use the Royal Canterlot voice, and it sent shivers down her spine. That is, past the other excruciating pains on top of that. So she pushed as hard as she could, using all of her remaining energy to do so. At that point, she felt the last bit of energy in her hooves leave her body, and she screamed again from the pain. The strength the last push took so much out of her, she collapsed her head on the back of the bed and almost fainted again. She panted as hard as she could and didn't think she could do another push. And that's when she heard the sweetest sound of all. The sound of her foal crying. She slowly turned her eyes to the space in front of her, and the doctor grabbed something in between her hind legs. When the doctor brought her hooves up, she was carrying a little foal in her grasp. The foal was a unicorn with a black straight mane and a dark purple coat, a coat even darker than Twilight's. He cried again as he came into the world and felt everything around him for the first time. At that moment, it was like the world around Twilight ceased to exist. All she could do was see the foal in front of her as the doctor wrapped him in a big wool blanket. She stared at him for what felt like an eternity, and she felt a tear go down her cheek. The next thing she knew, she was smiling with greater joy than she had ever felt in her life.
It's so beautiful,
she whispered.
Oh, my Celestia. He even looks like me and his father a little bit. I know,
Celestia added.
He's yours.
The doctor carefully brought the foal to Twilight, and she picked him up in her front hooves and brought him to her sight. The foal was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen, as his cries subsided. He began to fall asleep in her hooves, and she lost it at that point. Tears streamed down her cheek, but they were the most joyous tears she had ever let out. She held him tightly in her grasp and grinned from cheek to cheek. The feeling she had at that moment was beyond words, but she knew she would cherish it for the rest of her life.
Oh my gosh, you're so beautiful,
she said to the foal.
I love you so much already.
She didn't even know what to say anymore. All those times where she thought she would know what to do when that moment arrived, all the research she had done over many nights to prepare for it, nothing could have prepared her for it. And for once, that was fine. Celestia came over to her side to see the foal for herself. She gasped when she caught a good glimpse of him. Yes, the foal did remind her of Sombra more than she wanted to see, but there were so many similarities between him and his mother that it brought a tear to her eye. She came over to Twilight's other side and brought her face close to the foal, far enough so that he wouldn't be scared, but close enough that he could hear her.
You really are beautiful,
Celestia said to her.
You're in good hooves with your mother. She will take great care of you. I know her well enough to know that she will make you a great stallion some day.
Twilight smiled at Celestia, tears pouring down her face still.
Thank you. I owe you so much for everything. That's okay. You can call us even. After all the times you saved Equestria and even my flank a few times.
That elicited a laugh from Twilight, but she held her foal in her hooves again, all her attention to the sleeping unicorn. Time seemed to slow down in that room, as neither one of them wanted to break that harmonious silence for a while. Just seeing the foal there, sleeping and stirring, said it all for themselves. But eventually, there's other ponies who want to know about an event like this. They heard something over by the viewing window, and as it turned out, Twilight's friends arrived to see the foal for themselves. Spike was on Applejack's back as well, but all of them stopped in their tracks when they saw the foal in Twilight's hooves. Twilight smiled again, and all of their faces gleamed from the sight.
Can you believe that? Twilight's a mother now.
Applejack commented.
And that baby boy is the most precious thing I'd ever seen. I know,
Rarity cried, wiping the tears with a napkin she just happened to have.
He is a sight, isn't he? Hey, yeah.
Dash chimed in.
He might not have wings, but that mane makes him look wicked. Though, that's kind of like Sombra's mane. Never mind. He looks awesome to me, and I'm sure Twilight's excited. I've never seen her so happy before,
Fluttershy added.
And that foal is so... I don't even know what to say. I do!
Pinky yelled. She took a piece of paper out of her mane and pressed it against the window.
What are you doing, Pinky?
Spike asked.
Well, Twilight just had a foal, and the last time I was in the room with a newborn foal, they kicked me out of the room because I was too noisy. So I used a note to congratulate Twilight this time.
Inside the room, Twilight realised that Pinky made a little card for her to read. It was made to look like confetti was everywhere, and there was a crayon doodle of Pinky throwing confetti to the viewer. There was only one line on the card, but it was the only line she needed to write.
Welcome to the world, Twilight's son!
That warmed her heart, and she waved to Pinky to show her appreciation for that card. That made Pinky explode in delight, and there was suddenly a shower of confetti on her side of the wall. How a confetti shower showed up out of nowhere was another Pinky mystery best left unsolved. But the moment was going to get even better. She saw more ponies arrive by the viewing window, and she recognised two of them as Shining Armour and Cadence. Her friends moved out of the way to make room for them, and their expressions were just as joyous as hers was. Granted, Twilight felt a little bad that she had a foal before her brother did, knowing they really wanted one for a while now. But at the same time, seeing her family there to see the big moment made it all the more sweeter for her, especially since she was introducing the newest member of the family to her BBBFF and foal sitter. And then came the cherry on the top. She saw her parents arrive at the other side of the room, the couple that had done so much for her over the years. She could tell that her mother was gasping at the sight, and her father was so proud of his little filly for having a foal of her own. She was crying in joy just like her daughter was, and Twilight's father held her in his hooves to let the moment sink in. Even though she couldn't hear them, she could guess from their body expression that they wanted to come in. The guard hovering over the door granted them permission to go in, but warned them in advance that Twilight was going to be in pain after the delivery, and that the foal would be very sensitive so soon after his birth. And so the door opened for her parents to come in. Celestia stepped aside to let them come and see their grandson up close and personal, and they came to Twilight's left side to get a better look.
Oh my goodness, he's even better looking than I thought,
her mother commented.
And I had very high hopes as it was. I know,
her dad added.
He looks a lot like you, Twilight. I can see it in his coat. You must be very proud.
I am.
Twilight beamed.
This might be the best moment of my life. I love him so much already.
So do we.
Her father continued.
Though, I'm not sure I'm ready to be a grandfather. I don't want to feel old for another 2 decades at least.
Twilight and her mother both burst out laughing, unable to contain themselves.
Oh, you!
Her mother laughed.
I always loved your sense of humor. But we're so proud of you, Twilight. If you ever need more mother advice, or need some help raising him, we're just a letter away. Thank you. Thank all of you,
Twilight said, looking at her friends and the rest of her family past the viewing window, as well as Celestia.
I don't think this moment could have been so wonderful if it wasn't for all of you. You will never know how welcome we are to hear that,
Celestia added.
This is your moment. We all want you to cherish it as you like, as well as your foal, without having to worry about any of us. Go ahead and spend some time with him as you like. Thank you, and thank you for saving me from Sombra again.
She turned her attention back to the foal. The unicorn was sleeping soundly in her hooves still, and he yawned as he tried to rest. It was the cutest thing she had ever seen, and likely the first in a series of beautiful and cute moments she would be sharing with him.
Welcome to our world, my little dusk trail,
she said.
You have so many ponies looking after you, just like they do for me.
The end. And with that, we're finally finished. I'd like to take a moment to formally apologize to all of you, especially Limey Reads, for taking so long to finish this. You've all been absurdly patient in waiting for this, and thanks. Thank you. And please check out Limey's channel if you haven't already. Link will be in the description. As for why I've been gone for so long, well, there are a number of reasons for that. I'm going to post a video with all of the details tomorrow, but the short of it is health reasons, technical reasons, job reasons, and other projects. Again, I'll go into more details about all those reasons in tomorrow's upload, but in relation to that last one, I have a new YouTube channel, and I've recently started streaming on Twitch. In fact, depending on when you're watching this, I might be live right now. So, please go to the description and check out those links. Your follows are greatly appreciated. Also, please follow me on Twitter so I can keep you updated on anything that happens, especially new vids. Anyway, thanks every pony for sticking with me for all these years. I really appreciate it. So, see you tomorrow, every pony. On to the bloopers!
That entire dinner.
Children, I need you to be quiet while I'm doing this, okay? You're half of the reason why I don't record anymore. This is why I don't voice act anymore. I have cats. And no good place to record. Alright.
But explain it all the same to me. Explain to me how you got it on. I'm not sure if I should talk about it. This was our wedding night. I thought I burned all the bridges for Celestia to save me at this point, so I gave in and married Sombra. And this part? And this part? This is when we made love for the first time. I'm sorry, I can't. If it wasn't for this moment, I wouldn't be pregnant today. Oh, God. This dialogue.
is so awful. If it wasn't for this moment, I wouldn't be pregnant today. That was so hard to keep a fucking straight face. Oh, God. Oh. The books with a cover represent your... The books with the books with a cover represent... Children, calm the fuck down! I cannot say that I know who is the right stallion for you. It's definitely your brother. Maybe Spike. I cannot say that I know who the right stallion is for you, but I know this. When the time comes, you know he is the right one for you. When he looks past the crown and sees you for who you really are, and loves you for that alone. So again, probably your brother, or Spike. You take to wisdom as fillies take to... Oh, fuck, I ran out of breath. You take to wisdom... Wait for the people upstairs to stop moving. Also, wait for her to finish jumping down. Twilight! Twilight! Yes, I named my third cat Twilight. Anyway. Hmm. God, I've forgotten how demanding this is. On my vocal cords. And I'm not even narrating, I'm just doing the voices. Alrighty. Oh, my Celestia, your water broke! Darling, 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 darling. Oh, it is on! Oh, my Twilight, be quiet! Twilight, please be quiet. I need to record, and I need silence in order to record. Twilight. Twilight. Shush. 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 Twilight, please be quiet. Alright, I need 2 improvised voices here. You know what? I'm gonna do Lois and Peter. Don't worry, I'm here for you now. Oh, wait, hang on, I need to wait for the sirens to stop, and then I'll do that take again. Okay. To come up with another female voice. I'm running out of female voices. Oh, God, the doctor comes up again. I've already forgotten the voice. Alright, anyway. It's fine. It's fine. It's over. It's finally over. You just have to record the intro and outro.
Ah.